Howdy y'all, it's Hand That Builds here, and today I'm doing another model review. We are doing Revell's 1/24 scale 1970 Dodge Challenger TA. Now this kit originally came out, I believe, in 1983. It was a monogram offering, and this specific rebox has been released in 2016. Now, a little bit about the car. In the late 60s, Dodge wanted a competitor in Trans Am, and thusly they modified a Challenger to an entirely new set of specifications, and ultimately that resulted in one of the rarest Challengers out there. Now, this is going to be the first time I've actually reviewed a car model kit. All previous kits have been either, I believe they've almost exclusively been aircraft, so this will be a nice change up. Obviously, as some of you may be aware, I've been uploading very slowly. I've just been really busy. So, back to the kit. Start off with a very nice looking box art with the words Street Burner emblazoned on the top left, as well as Revell and the various little stats that they have. I guess it's a skill level 4, 12 up, and apparently this can be finished in 5 hours. Which, I mean, I feel like that's going to be a little bit of a stretch, but obviously some people work a bit faster than others. I'm not particularly too used to cars, so it just might be me taking a really long time. Here at the bottom, we can see various little stats on what paints to use, as well as the characteristics of the car, number of parts, water slide decals, all that. Dodge's entry into the pony car wars was the Challenger, and it more than held its own in a hot company with the outstanding 340 CID small block engine, which I think is the engine that is in this car. Forgive me for not being incredibly knowledgeable about Dodges. I'm more of a Pontiac fan. Here we see the same box art. Now here we have a nice painted example in a cool orange. Got a, now you may have noticed that this said 2-in-1 up here. This is because it comes with 2 different configurations you can do. And this example, I do believe this is the second configuration where it has a modified engine. You can see that this guy has chosen to paint the interior and all that. It's cool that the engine itself is painted red. Very well done model work here. Entirely orange underside, which I don't think I've ever actually seen that before, so I would have to double check if it is actually orange or just the usual gray that I've seen most other cars. We also see the different exhaust pipes, which is always a little weird looking to me, but that's why I find this car pretty cool, or part of the reason, other than it being an absolute beauty. Alright, now that's enough waffling, let's actually get inside the kit. Lid is on there a little tight, but just need a little bit of a shake to get in there. Starting off, we have the chrome pieces, which many model cars come with. Very shiny. I'm gonna quickly open this bag up. Fortunately, these are not the easy to open stapled bags that some other manufacturers make. Very shiny chrome pieces. I know a lot of people like to strip off the chrome off these pieces with, I think it's Mr. Color Thinner that they use, or some other mixture. Personally, I just think it's wild that you have such reflective parts on, and I mean, I've seen a few muscle cars before and they do have like parts that are this reflective, but you know, it's always up to the modeler. Very nice. Looks like we have some engine heads and just all kinds of cool shit. Sorry, excuse my language. Underneath that, we have the rubber tires, which are connected with this one big sprue. I always find these a little annoying because they always leave residue on the actual rubber tire itself, which you have to carefully scratch out with a hobby knife, but still, it's nice that they have actual rubber tires instead of plastic ones. Here we have the clear pieces for the windows and presumably the headlights. Here we have headlights on the inside, very translucent, very clear, and just like one major mounting point, which honestly you should be careful with that, just because I can easily see that causing a crack to travel into the windshield itself. But yeah, that and this connection point here too, but as long as you're careful, you should be fine. Now underneath that, it seems we have the main bulk of parts, all of which, as mentioned, are molded in white. Unfortunately, it makes it a little hard to see the details, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Let's first look at the actual body of the or not the aircraft, sorry, of the Challenger. So you can have some nice sidewall detailing in the engine bay. It's very nice overall shape. It does look like you have a fuel filler cap that you'll have to glue on. Some molded indicator lights. Door panels. Roof. Does not look like there's a seam right here, which I've seen in a lot of other Revell muscle cars where there's a seam that just runs across there. It's nice to see that there isn't one on this example. Here we can see the inside of the wheel well. Very nice. Here we have the first sprue. This one seems to have various engine parts as well as a hood. I do believe this is in the second configuration you can have the car, where you have a big air scoop sticking out of the hood. I also believe these are engine parts that you would use to modify the engine build, so you can mount said air scoop onto the car. It's very nice. It's cool that they got the little cotter pin molded on there. Very nice detail. All right, now we have the actual interior of the car, which has some nice texturing on the floor. Rest looks very basic. Looks like you'll have separate pieces for doors, but getting up in there, see the seats. Seats look pretty basic, so they do the job, but they're not particularly detailed. Then, of course, we got the pedals, if the camera would focus, which look pretty decent. Very nice. Now, moving on to the other bits of the sprue, looks like we have the back of engines, various engine back of seats, and then various engine parts, sorry. Very dehydrated right now, so I'm kind of stumbling over my words a little bit. Here we have those very interesting looking exhaust pipes. And then wheels, the front bumper. Very nice looking. Mirror. Filter probably. And I believe these are side mirrors, which I always lose those, so should be careful. And I believe these discs are for the wheels. Here we have the underneath of the car, or the bottom. Pretty decently molded. Does seem like they have the copyright logo right there. 1986. You'll have to be careful sanding that away, because I don't think Dodge had Revell's logo on their car. more of the front bumper, more of the engine. You got the actual engine itself, the engine block, radiator, steering wheel, then the actual door panels. Let's get a close look at those. These are actually pretty nicely detailed. They have a nice texture to them, and you can see they also have a nice wood texture, so it'll be a fun thing to paint. Some sort of hose. Seems like there's a big connection to the sprue on the side here. Very nice. And then finally, we have the last sprue. This one seems to have the transmission, the rear suspension, probably the front suspension too here as well, if that's like all. Actually, no, I think these are separate, just looks connected because of that. The front seats, which look decent. They do the job, but they do have some nasty seam lines on the side of them, so you'll have to fix that. I gotta be honest. Well, actually, no, I think that's the part of the. I don't think it might be an engine filter, but I know that this is like the top of the engine for the 6-pack version of this. Instrument cluster, dashboard, and of course the other hood that I mentioned. And these do look like they are able to be mounted in such a way they can open and close the hood, which is always appreciated. And another air scoop. I do believe this is the stock air scoop. All very nice. And I do believe that is the entirety of the parts. Now let's get on to the instructions, which here we have a nice large instruction set. Opening it up, I believe we'll find, first we have a little directory for all the parts, and I do believe these are for all the different paints that you're going to use. So good to check this while you're painting. And then, there we go. Well, obviously more parts listed out. And then here we have the actual decals, which we have these two ginormous ones, which I wonder what those go to. I'm sure there's like a famous car out there that these are for, but as we'll find out later, the instructions don't include the paint scheme that use these, so not really sure what they're for, but here we have the actual decals themselves, charger, various small logos. Interestingly enough, I'm not seeing any anything for the instrument cluster, so you might actually have to paint that yourself. These decals do seem to be pretty brand new. 6-pack, TA, the stripes, and then a nice selection of license plates. One of the things that always bothers me about car kits is that they sometimes don't include a selection of license plates, which, I mean, makes sense, but it's always nice to have because you can, sometimes they include states that you're from or states that you don't like, and it's nice to pick and choose, nice to have the options is basically what I'm saying. But otherwise, yeah, these look really nice. Reflecting the light off of them, you can see they don't have a lot of extra film to them. Don't feel particularly thick, even if the light makes it look like that. Very nice. And of course, you got a nice little bit of wax paper. All right, instructions. So here, once again, as I mentioned, there's two different ways you can build it, stock or custom. Stock is obviously as the car was manufactured, and then custom, I do believe, is just adding a crazy supercharging system to the car. Here we have the assembly of the basic engine, the assembly of the modified, further assembly of the two. Seems like, you can do either or, and then all these other parts are common between the two. Then you can choose between stock or custom wheels, which I believe that's why with the chrome parts, which I'm not going to dig them up right now, but with the chrome parts, you probably saw that it came with 2 different wheel sets, so you can choose between the 2, whichever you think you'll like better. Front suspension, I think that's the front suspension. What I think is the front suspension. Obviously you can put the wheels on, but that gets glued to the underside of the car. And then you mount the engine onto the front. Then we have the rear suspension, which does seem to be the same between the 2, just with different tires, depending on, once again, whichever one you chose. Exhausts, does look like there's a center bit of the exhaust you have to remove. And then you add the radiator hose. You can do the glass. And then you can do the actual interior, which is door panels, the gear shifter, instrument cluster, seats. Does not seem like the instrument cluster comes with decals, so you're gonna have to paint those yourself. And that just inserts right underneath the car. Then here we have the actual engine bay itself, which looks like you have to decal and paint. I'm gonna assume that that's the battery. Underneath of the car. Rear bumper is made up of 3 separate parts. I guess apparently that's a clear part too. Rear bumper, have a decision between what kind of splitter you want, or not splitter, God, why did I say splitter? Rear wing you want. You can have the stock or custom. Then here we have the front. Headlights, bumper on the car. And then the 2 different hood options, which I mentioned. This one is the basic version, or the stock, which honestly I prefer the look of the stock. And then the custom one, which doesn't have the hood scoop on it at all. That one has just enough things so you can stick that giant supercharger out. Looks like you also have even more of a choice between, admittedly, I do not know what those are, or the giant intake. Side mirrors. And then finally, a black and white illustration of what the stock car will look like. And as I mentioned, there is no illustration for the weird decals that you get, so that's a little unfortunate, but oh well. So, this car is usually being retailed for 26 bucks, and I feel like that's a pretty good price for what it is. Obviously, it's an older kit, and there's better value kits for that price out there, especially by Revell. But at the end of the day, I do think that when you're paying, you still get a pretty decent vehicle. And it is a little lacking in detail. I didn't mention it specifically during the actual looking at the sprues, but there's no wire details, and the lack of decals for the instrument panel is a big disappointment, but that's whatever. And yeah, I still think this is going to be a pretty good build. And hopefully I catch you guys later.